So it's been a rough couple days for Russia. I mean, it looks like overnight, Ukrainian drones hit a Russian MiG-31, a Pantsir air defense system, and multiple S-400 radars and launchers. Meanwhile, Russia just got called out for showing a fake video pretending to show their troops in Kupiansk. And that submarine that was hit a few days ago down in Crimea, yeah, pretty sure it sustained some serious damage. Now, starting with the strikes overnight in Crimea, Ukraine's SBU released these photos where they say last night long-range drones from the Alpha Special Operations Center successfully targeted components of the Russian air defense system at Belbek military airport in temporarily occupied Crimea. They say as a result of the strikes, the following were destroyed: a MiG-31 aircraft with full arsenal, meaning fully loaded, ready for takeoff, likely the reason it was sitting out on the runway and not parked somewhere or even underneath a shelter. The Pantsir S-2 anti-aircraft missile system, 2 Nebo SVU long-range radar detection systems, and a 92 N6 radar, which is a component of the S-400 Triumph anti-aircraft missile system. Now, as of right now, we don't have a video of these strikes, which is a little bit unique. We're getting spoiled to kind of expect videos of every one of these announcements. In this case, we've just got the pictures released by the SBU. I should note that the Russian sources right now seem to be citing the SBU report. I've not seen any additional commentary or explanation from the Russian side, but I've also not seen anyone disputing that these strikes were carried out. So we'll keep an eye out for the footage to be released here, hopefully in the next day or two. Generally in Crimea, we see not just aircraft targeted and submarines a couple days ago, but a lot of air defense radars. And these radar systems we've talked about before are very expensive, very precise to manufacture, very hard to reproduce. So if you only have launchers, for instance, your air defense assets are not going to be very effective. The radars are arguably the most important part of that entire system, so they can identify an incoming threat, be it a missile or a drone or an aircraft. And then the launcher, of course, carries out the interception. So we're seeing a lot of radars hit, not that many launchers. Till last night, we did get some footage showing, actually in Belgorod, Ukraine taking out a couple, at least one, maybe 2 S-400 launchers. And this one here, this footage was released by the Ukrainian military, but verified through a number of Russian sources. In fact, the commentary here from Russian war correspondent, military informant, said, quote, "A strike by Ukrainian kamikaze drones on 2 launchers of the S-400 air defense system was spotted in the Belgorod region. Judging by the video, one was completely burned out due to a direct hit by a drone on the anti-aircraft missile. The other one suffered damage. The distance from the contact line is about 50 kilometers." And a quick note on that, all of the strikes we're going to run through today are pretty deep inside of Russian territory. That's the closest to the line of contact at 50 kilometers. The strikes in Crimea against Belbek airfield are even further than that. And then, of course, the strikes against the submarine is even further than that. Now, quick update on some fundraisers. Good news here over the last couple days. We just closed out this one for Car for Ukraine. That's 4 pickup trucks heading to units in the east. We had a goal for 44,000 euros. We hit that quickly. Y'all are incredible. So I just got notification from the Car for Ukraine team that they have 2 of those vehicles already in the process of getting moved to those units out east. Hope to have some pictures and videos here in the next couple days, definitely in the next couple weeks, to show you updates on that one. But we did hit the goal there. About a week prior to that, we hit our goal with Zyga's Paw to pick up some interceptor drones for the 429th Achilles. Now, in that campaign, we raised $116,000. I just got notification earlier today from the folks at Zyga's Paw that they were able to purchase 120 interceptor drones. That's incredible. You think about the impact that you all are having at the front. Every one of those means one less Shahed, one less recon drone overhead, one less Lancet striking down on a Ukrainian position. 120 of those that you all provided to Achilles. The Zyga's Paw people also let me know that they reached out via email to everybody that gave 200 plus or 1,000 plus for a patch or a flag. So if that's you and you haven't heard from Zyga's Paw, shoot them an email, shoot me an email, make sure we get that sorted out so they can get that your way. But incredible work here, guys, right? Like almost $200,000 raised in the span of a month or two. That's incredible. Very real impact on the battlefield. Now, turning back to the battlefield here, we've got a bit of an update around Kupiansk, where Russia is continuing to kind of go all in, that they still hold this territory. In fact, let's pull up a map real quick, and we'll show you the area we're talking about here. not a lot of change in terms of territorial control. This is deep state map. We've got Kupiansk here that clearance operations by Ukraine had been ongoing for a couple weeks at this point. And it was about 3 weeks ago where Putin said, this is entirely held by Russia. And we've seen Russia strangely kind of double down on this in recent days. Rybar put out a note here, kind of pushing back on a video. I'll play that video here real quick, actually, where they said, for some reason, people tried to conduct a ridiculous anti-crisis publishing of a supposed walk of the Russian armed forces in Kupiansk. However, Western OSINT resources quickly found out that the footage was taken from a village 20 kilometers northeast of the city. That's right, Russia presented this video saying, look at us walking through Kupiansk. We really do still hold this territory. And it didn't take long for people smarter than me that are incredible at figuring that stuff out on a map to say, wait a minute, this is well inside of territory still held by Russia. Not even close. I mean, technically it's close to Kupiansk, but not in a contested area at all. And this is the kind of thing that it's interesting to see right now, because we have Rybar today saying on the Kupiansk direction, a very difficult situation has developed, and the Ukrainian armed forces are trying to consolidate their positions in the center of the town. They say the situation in this direction is another clear example of what problems an exaggeration of successes can bring. And the price of such an approach with borrowed villages is always the lives of the fighters. And the reason I say this is interesting is, on the one hand, you've got some of these war correspondents and military bloggers saying, what are we doing, guys? Why this, taking cities on credit is a problem. But just before hitting record, we had the chief of the Russian General Staff, Gerasimov, saying right now they hold Kupiansk, and in the course of the last couple weeks, they surrounded and eliminated 19 Ukrainian battalions. Like, they are sticking with this narrative that Putin laid out falsely a few weeks ago. And there were Russian analysts at the time that said, like, what are you talking about, man? What are we doing here? Russia's sticking with it. So Gerasimov, just about an hour ago, said this bad group of forces conducted a successful operation to force the Oskil River and liberate the city of Kupiansk. It says, thanks to deep coverage along the western bank of the river, 19 Ukrainian battalions were blocked in the city. Subsequently, the assault units, acting from several directions, defeated the Ukrainian groups surrounded in the city in a short time and then mopped up Kupiansk. Again, this just doesn't really line up with anything we're seeing out of this city right now. We've got footage of Ukrainian elements operating in Kupiansk, and all of the more reliable Russian analysts at this point are sounding the alarm, saying this is a problem, guys. We have to reinforce positions once we move through, or else it's setting up a relatively open door for Ukraine to counterattack. For whatever reason, the Russian government and official sources, and we should note, it was about a little less than a week ago, the Russian Ministry of Defense held a meeting where they pulled in a bunch of these war bloggers, and the day after, we saw at least a couple of them come out with these strong statements saying, no, Russia still holds Kupiansk. So that is very clearly their official message. It does not appear to line up with events on the ground, and does not appear to be tricking some of the folks following this war from the Russian perspective. Now, shifting down to the Pokrovsk direction, we got some new footage out of Azov, where they showed, once again, a Russian assault trying to move through the fog was met head-on by Ukrainian drones and seemingly entirely destroyed. So this clip was just released by Azov yesterday. They called it a winter stroll of the occupiers in the Dobropilia direction. They say, thanks to the professional and prompt response of the Ukrainian Defense Forces, the next Russian offensive ended halfway. They say, taking advantage of the fog and poor visibility, the Russian forces attempted to carry out a motorized infantry assault in the area of responsibility of the 1st Azov National Guard Corps. Many quad bikes, infantry, and attempts to advance as far as possible were involved. In total, the Russians used 16 quad bikes during the assault, and none of them reached their target. We are seeing this again and again and again. I feel like it's been every day for a week or more where we have seen relatively large Russian assaults like this. I mean, even if you call it a company-sized or a platoon-plus sized assault, we're just not seeing that elsewhere. Generally, everywhere else across the front, the Russian assaults have whittled down into groups of 3 or less. But for some reason, near Dobropilia, near Pokrovsk, we're continuing to see these Russian elements move forward on roads during the day and pretty quickly met with overwhelming Ukrainian firepower. I mean, it is just, to put it bluntly, it is feeding the meat grinder, and I would not be surprised if we get more specifically out of Azov here. We know they've been operating just based off some statements on their Telegram channel in the Dobropilia direction, and we have not gotten a lot of clips showing their activity day in and day out. Wouldn't be shocked if we see more here in the near future. Now, turning to the submarine operation down in Crimea, I remember a couple days ago, the SBU carried out a strike. Underwater drone, Deep Sea Baby, infiltrated a Russian port and hit a submarine, a Kilo-class submarine. And another key piece here that we talked about in a previous video is in releasing the evidence of this strike, Ukraine showed that they had hacked into Russian security cameras in some of the most sensitive sites, at least in Crimea, right? A security camera overwatching a naval shipyard, pretty sensitive, to say the least. So anyways, Russia came right out the gate and said, no damage, see, here's the submarine. And they, of course, only showed the side that wasn't actually hit and didn't show anything underwater. I know that would be tough to do, but if you're talking about an underwater strike on a submarine, showing the part that is above water, I don't know that really eases all fears that everything is okay. Anyways, we've got some updated pictures. There was some satellite imagery right out the gate that clearly showed the explosion took place, not that that was really up for debate. Since then, we've got another one where some Russian sources are saying that it looks like it is leaking oil or there's something coming out. I'm not sure. I've seen some debate on this, that it could be any number of things and isn't necessarily, and that the quality of the image doesn't automatically mean that's what you're seeing. So take that with a grain of salt. One that was pretty confusing to me was a picture showing that they sunk some barges at the entrance to this harbor to seal it off, I guess. I feel like that is a borderline permanent solution to what should be a temporary problem. Like, what is happening here? Why not submarine nets? It seems like that's a very simple, low-cost, effective solution here to just close off that little piece. But no, they sunk barges? Like, are those just sitting around? I don't know. Like, do countries just have barges sitting around and it's like, we're not going to use those anymore, may as well sink them so nobody can get in here? That seems, again, like a pretty severe response. And in terms of saying the submarine looks to be damaged, again, kind of reading between the lines here, is they didn't move it. So if you look at some of these pictures, all of the other ships appear to have been moved out of this harbor, this specific location. The submarine is still there. So, you know, kind of leads you down the road of, did it not move because it can't move? Why would you move everything else out that wasn't targeted and leave the one thing that was targeted? Again, I'm kind of going with the gut feeling here is if a large explosion happens next to a submarine underwater, there's probably at the very least a lot of checks that it needs to go through before it's considered seaworthy again. But in this case, it's not moving at all. My money's on probably some pretty serious damage done to that specific submarine. So again, pretty rough couple days here for Russia. Interesting, I got to say, with the Kupiansk thing, that they're really digging in. Instead of, I thought the move there would have been just don't talk about it for a couple days or weeks or months, shift the focus elsewhere. But they're kind of going all in on actually what you see isn't true. What we tell you is the lone truth, which is an interesting gamble to take. We'll see how it plays out for them. But that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching. We'll see y'all next time.